Hi crafters, welcome to a new episode of my Christmas craft series. Today we are making a Christmas chalet house, a beautiful centerpiece inspired by the mountain cabins from my childhood in the French Alps. We begin by creating the four walls of the house. Two walls are simple rectangles of identical dimensions and the other two are the front and back facades, each made of a rectangle topped with a triangle that will support the roof. You can choose any dimensions you like. I chose a 6x4 inch rectangle plus an additional 3 inches in height for the roof. To build the facade with the roof, I first draw my 6x4 inch rectangle. I find the rectangle center and draw a vertical line up the middle. From that center line, I measure 3 inches upwards for the roof, then form the triangular top by connecting each upper corner of the rectangle to the center point at the top of the 6x3 inch area. I cut out the shape, then draw a window on one of the facades. Next, I draw a door near the center of the same facade. Where the rectangular base meets the triangular roof shape, I draw a horizontal line to represent a supporting beam. Above it, I add a second beam to simulate timber framing. I add a vertical beam at the top, then trace diagonal beams that go from the base of that vertical beam to the midpoint of each side of the roof triangle. I create a second identical facade using the first as a template, then draw a round window at the top and 2 square windows at the bottom so light can shine inside, since I plan to place ornaments in the house. I carefully cut out all the windows, you will need patience here. On each side wall, I also draw 2 more windows, a small square one and a larger rectangular one that will reveal the indoor scene. I cut those out as well. Next, I glue narrow strips of craft paper around each window to hide the raw cardboard edges and give everything a nice smooth finish. Then I cut pieces of blister plastic a little larger than the windows, at least half an inch all around, and tape them inside using masking tape. I do this for every single window. I also glue craft paper all along the rough edges inside the house to make sure those plastic panes stay secure and never shift. For the round window, I simply redraw the shape on craft paper, cut it out like a ring and glue it around the opening. Once that's done, I paint in white all the inside walls, being careful not to smudge paint on the blister plastic, even though I could easily remove that with water. The idea is to use a light color inside that will help bringing some light in. Originally I intended to leave the interior white, but then I remembered the beautiful scrap of Christmas wrapping paper I had saved from past gifts and decided to repurpose them as wallpaper. Since the walls already have windows, applying the paper would be tricky, but I found a solution. I print out all my exterior walls and glue the wrapping paper to the unprinted side. Then on the printed side I simply cut out the window openings. But don't glue the wallpaper sheet to the cardboard yet. This must be done only after the walls are attached to the base. For the base I use a rectangular cardboard piece about 3 inches longer and 2 inches wider than the house. I attach the walls with masking tape, not hot glue. I place tape vertically where the wall meets the base, then I reinforce with a horizontal strip. Think of real architecture. Houses need flexibility to resist movement and small vibrations, especially during an earthquake. Wood absorbs motion better than rigid cement. A craft is no different. If it's too rigid, it will crack or fall apart over the years as you move it around and store it. Tape provides the right flexibility, just like how shipping companies rely on acrylic or reinforced tape, not hot glue. Over time, I've learned to save hot glue for decorative details only. Once the wall is taped to the base, I brush glue along the joint and reinforce it with craft paper strips. Then I glue on my wallpaper. I repeat this with the next wall, taping it to the first wall on the outside. I glue a piece of gift wrapping paper to the base as flooring, but I avoid gluing it along the side where the last wall will attach, so I can lift it later to hide the tape underneath. When all 4 walls are standing, I secure the exterior seams with masking tape and reinforce them with craft paper. Then, using a cereal box cardboard, I cut long strips and turn them into small rectangles to mimic wooden panels, which I glue all over the exterior. With the walls finished, I move on to the roof. I cut 2 rectangles slightly wider than the house and position them on each side of the supporting walls. I hot glue the roof panels to the sides just to hold them in place, and then I staple them from the inside using a wall stapler. If you don't have one, or if you feel nervous using it because the cardboard seems a bit thin, you can simply press the staples in by hand. Just use a heavy tool to help push them all the way through. Then I brush glue along the section of the roof I have just attached and use strips of craft paper to secure it neatly to the front wall. The goal is to seal every little gap between the roof and the house. Let the big bad wolf try blowing this one down. He won't get far. The 3 little pigs inside are perfectly safe. This house is definitely not held together by hot glue alone. To make tiles, I cut wavy strips from cereal box cardboard or cardstock, peel off the printed layer, apply PVA glue to the roof, and then I start gluing them in overlapping rows. If one strip is too too short, I simply join several until I reach the end. Now it's time to make Santa with paper-mâché clay. I start by shaping a small ball for his head using a little water to erase any cracks. For the body, I build a base with aluminum foil, then wrap another coil of foil around it to form the arms and bulk everything up. After that, I cover the whole structure with fresh paper-mâché clay straight from the fridge. Mine has been sitting there for 2 weeks and it still works perfectly. In fact, it's even better because it's firmer and holds the shape really well. I add 2 feet, cover them in clay, and then begin sculpting Santa's face, his open mouth as if he is saying ho ho ho, his hairline, eyes, mustache and a beard. I roll a tiny ball for the nose and blend it in. For the hat, I sculpt it directly onto the head by pushing the clay upward and forming it into a point. I add a little clay coil for the fur trim and a ball for the pom-pom. Then I split the bottom of his coat to form pants, shape them and add fur trim at the ends. Finally, I sculpt his jacket with a thin layer of clay, give it texture, add the fur trim, the belt and his hands. For the second character, which is a little girl in bed hoping to spot Santa, I build a foil armature, cover it with flattened clay, sculpt her nose and facial features, and make her hair with a clay coil. For the pine trees, I stack 3 clay triangles and carve pine needle texture all around. I make 3 trees in total. For the bed, I wrap a cardboard rectangle in foil, leave some extra foil to form the legs, then I cover everything with clay. I sculpt a pillow, place the girl on top, and attach her with a bit of water. I also raise the supporting beams inside the house using flattened clay strips, and I sculpt clay window frames. After everything dries, I paint Santa's face in a skin tone, his fur trim, gloves, beard and hair in white, and his suit, pants and hat in bright red. His shoes and belt are black, the girl's pajamas are metallic light blue, her hair a warm yellow blonde, and her bed linens a raspberry shade to contrast with her clothes. The trees are painted green. I sculpt a dog from 2 clay balls, a small one for the head and a larger one for the body. I stretch the back to form a tail. I form the legs by pressing the clay inward, make tiny eyes, shape the muzzle by creating a raised border, and then I sculpt the ears the same way. Since I want the dog to look surprised, I make a big open mouth. With a blue wax crayon close in color to the girl's pajamas, I go back over her clothes to deepen the color and give them a smoother texture. I do the same with her hair, skin and the bed. I add a touch of pink blush to her cheek with a permanent marker, then I reinforce all the wax crayon colors with markers in matching tones. I repeat the process for Santa and use a white permanent marker to brighten all the white areas. I paint the house beams brown along with the window frames. Once I have cleaned the inside of the windows, I hot glue all the characters in place. Now for the wooden exterior, I start with a light beige, then layer on a slightly muddier brown. I use a few touches of orange for highlights and use a richer reddish tone to create shadows under the roof and in other recessed areas. With a triangular brush, I add a bit of bronze paint for a soft shimmer, just where frost would naturally catch the moonlight. Then I place the second roof panel, tape it to the first one and seal the seam with craft paper just like before. I add another round of way with strips for the ties, stopping half an inch before the very top. That's where I glue a large bent piece of cardstock to lock the ties in place and I paint it grey. To make the chalet look even more realistic, I glue vertical strips of cardstock underneath the roof. This is the area where farmers in the Alps traditionally stored rolled feed for their animals during the winter. I trim the strips around the round window and along the slope of the roof. Since this area stays in shadow, I paint it a dark brown. Always think about your lighting, good shadows make a huge difference in realism. I finished the base by sealing all the corrugated edges with craft paper and glue. It's a bit tedious but it's totally essential. Then I trace the base onto white glittery foam and glue it on. For the door, I cut a red rectangle into strips the size of the original door and glue each strip on top to create depth. I use epoxy glue to attach Santa by the doorstep and arrange the trees around him. For the final touch, I brush a bit of silver paint onto the roof tiles with my spreader brush. I sculpt snow along the roof and window frames using paper-mâché clay, paint it white and brush a little white onto the facade as well. Then I add glitter to the snow, the beams, the window paints and the roof, just enough for that magical winter sparkle. And voila, our Christmas chalet is complete. Santa has just visited and now we get to keep this little enchanted moment forever. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as I did making it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you love Christmas decor and want more ideas, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you so much for watching and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Happy crafting!